Absolutely. Well, thanks, Tom. And Ben, I'm going to come back to you. As we all know, political cartoonists can lose their lives for the work that they do. What you do as a profession, not only does it do so much good, so does it have such a positive impact, but it can be dangerous work. And I don't know if you've ever run into a situation where you've been threatened or harassed or anything to that effect.
Yeah, it can be, and of course, and one thing that leaps to mind, of course, that everybody's mind is the Muhammad cartoons and the threats that were made. I mean, there are cartoonists in Europe who live under 24-hour security because of these cartoons they did. No, I mean, if you're a cartoonist in the United States, you really are in sort of a cocoon of the protections that our society affords and our laws afford, and you really have it pretty good. It's certainly if you're doing it every day for years, and you do get the calls and the letters and the emails, and a lot of them are pretty nasty. And you know, over the years, you develop a lot of snappy comebacks that are very effective.
For example.
One that I learned from an editorial writer we had years ago. He was on the phone in our office there, and he was obviously being roundly chewed out by somebody, and went on and on and on, and finally he said, you have a pencil and paper there, and he waited a second. He said, well, now take this down. He said, 600 North Michigan Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, and clearly the person said, well, what's that? He said, that's the address of the Goss Newspaper Products Company, and they'll be more than happy to sell you a printing press, and you can print your own goddamn newspaper. So you do sort of develop those things, but I know that you know, we have a trade group that meets every year, the Association of American Editorial Cartoonists, which one of our very few female members, Signe Wilkinson from Philadelphia, once described as an all-white, all-male drinking club that meets once a year, but which is mostly true. But anyway, it is the one sort of group of all the editorial cartoonists in the country, all 18 that are left. And but every year we try to bring in cartoonists from outside the United States. In fact, there is sort of a group that's sort of related to our group called Cartoonist Rights Network, that's run out of Washington, that is sort of an Amnesty International for editorial cartooning, and they find cartoonists abroad who are being persecuted, imprisoned, killed for their cartoons. These are just their cartoons, folks. You know? But and every year they single one out for sort of an award for the most courageous one, and they do their technique is very much like Amnesty International. They try to bring pressure on these governments and these parties that are persecuting these cartoonists. But outside the United States and outside the Western democracies, yeah, it can be very hazardous to your health, and I always salute those guys and those women who are doing, you know, who are expressing their opinions in cartoons, and risking jail, risking, you know, I had a friend who was a cartoonist in Peru who he called me up one day and he said, well, I said, how you doing? He said, well, there are army tanks all around my block, you know, and they're here for me. And although sometimes it happens in the United States too. My very good friend Ted Rall in New York City, whose cartoons you've probably seen, has done some very controversial cartoons. In fact, I think sometimes that's the main thing for him, is not expressing an opinion. It's gigging people, you know. But he does some very strong work. And after 9/11, he got crosswise with 9/11 widows of firemen and policemen who he thought were exploiting the tragedy that had happened to them to make money, and he did a cartoon expressing that. And I wasn't talking to him, but was talking to a mutual friend of ours, and he said there were not tanks, but there were fire engines all around his house, and the firemen were coming up, and there was no fire. And
Yet.
so he was being harassed. But so, yeah, it can be dangerous outside of the protections that we have for expression, and I certainly salute the people that that undergo that just to make those free expressions.
Sure. Well, thanks, Ben. I'll say the last question for Alan. And Alan, really, sort of along the same lines, you talked about some of the photos that you'd taken that are at least considered by some so controversial that they wouldn't even publish them here. And what a photographer does is similar in a way. You are putting out an image that has a profound amount of impact, so much so, again, that sometimes those are censored or banned altogether. Have you been in a situation where you have felt intimidated or threatened or anything like that?
Well, I'm not the only one, but I remember I was in my dark room. I was over at 17th and Guadalupe, Galleria Sin Fronteras, and I got a call from Mark Ishnaga with the SOS. He said to get over to, they were having the Senate was meeting over at the 15th and Guadalupe, I think, at what they call the Horlitzer building. Said everybody on every side of the SOS controversy is there for the legislation is coming down to a vote. So I grabbed my camera and I ran over there, and I was taking pictures, and Gary Bradley screamed at me from across the rotunda, said he was going to come and take my camera and do mean things to me and this and that. And so he ran right up to me, and I was like, we were like ready to go. And I said, well, Gary, I've been studying martial arts for 30 years. Yeah, I'm honor bound to tell you this, you know. But if you know, do whatever you have to do, you know. And he turned around and went away.
I appreciate all of you being here, first of all. And I'd like to ask Carolyn, where does the money go that is raised? Does it go to individual farmers? Does it go to lobbying? Does it go to grants? Tell us how it's spent, okay?
Sure. I'm smiling at Bill because Bill and I have a joke about this, but actually the money, it's a really good question, and a lot of people ask it. The money goes in a lot of different pockets. We have been prohibited originally, and still are, from giving money directly to farmers. The IRS said we can't because farmers are a business. Money cannot go directly to a business. So we have given for years and years to a variety of groups that are out in the countryside, which the very fact that these people exist I find extremely encouraging. Most people don't know these people. They don't know they exist. Bill, as I said, tipped us off in the very first place with folks from Iowa, from Prairie Fire, and there are many, many people doing unbelievably wonderful, courageous, smart, innovative work in the countryside, and these people are advocating for farmers. They work with farmers. They're finding better markets for farmers. So we give grants to, Glenda, how many organizations have we granted by now? I have no idea. Hundreds and hundreds of organizations. And the grants are often small amounts because we don't have large, huge, massive amounts of money to give out, because every year we go down to nothing. We operate kind of like Willie, rich, poor, rich, poor, rich, poor. We go right down to nothing before a concert. We have no idea how we're going to survive. Glenda and I have gotten used to it. Some of the new people find it very scary. But every year, as Willie always said, he said, look, Carolyn, if it comes down to it and we got no money, we can just go out into a field and hold a concert. And that is the truth, because the equity that these guys have, and I do say guys because it is the four men that I'm referring to, even though a lot of women have played at Farm Aid, they have tremendous equity, and the record companies know that, and they know that they've got nothing without the talent and the insights that these people have into our culture. But Farm Aid, so the money goes to grants, but not all the money goes to grants at all. Farm Aid has been very active. We kind of call ourselves an activist funder, in a sense, or an activist charity, because from the very beginning we've been active. We haven't just given the money out to people. We've been partners with those people that we grant we are partners with those people. We work very closely with them because our opportunity is to communicate perhaps more than a lot of these smaller groups. And when you put all them together, they do have a definite point of view and a direction and a vision. And our job is to get that vision out there and to get that point of view out there. So we spend money also on a lot of program work that we do. We have had a farmers hotline since day one. We pick up the phone, answer farmers' questions and problems. It's turned into something called the Farm Resource Network, which now has over 500 referrals. It is both a hotline that someone named Joel answers, or any of us answer it, but if Joel's busy. And it also is an online service for farmers now. So you can go to farmaid.org, and you can go to our Farmers Resource Network, and you can be hooked into a whole network of people out in the countryside that are working with farmers to find better markets, to find, we really founded this out of exasperation because we were so upset so often when a farm would call and say, you know what, my farm's on the auction block tomorrow. And you knew it was too late, and you would get an advocate connected to this person best you could, but it was too frustrating, and we said we've got to reach people before the crisis moment comes. So this is an attempt to reach farmers. We have a lot more outreach work to do with those services, but they are there, and we are reaching many, many farmers with those. We also have a whole staff. We have more staff than we ever used to have, and we do an awful lot of work with these farm groups. We have something that we've newly developed called homegrown.org. Now, do not go to homegrown.com because it is a porn site. And I don't want to see everybody starting to use their handhelds right now. Just hold on, you can do it later. But it's homegrown.org, and it is a social networking place online for people to go to with this incredible new fever and mainline interest of so many urban people of doing it yourself. And it's connecting those people with each other. A lot of those people are doing all kinds of urban farming. They're also doing all kinds of things for themselves, which is very much what farmers do. And it is giving that people that sense of connection, and that sense of connection to where their food comes from also. So, and Glenda, what's the other great way that you have of describing where our money goes? What have I forgotten? I mean, so it's all about family farmers, and it's all about putting the family farmer up there as a strong, innovative person. And as Willie says, it's the bottom rung of the ladder, and without family farmers, we don't know what we have, so.
Thank you, Carol. Question?
Hi, my name is Rebecca Belmetero, and I'm running for State Board of Education, District 5. Thank you. And this question is really just a chance to plug that issue. But you did say things that were sort of remotely connected to the issue of culture, which is the topic of this panel. And it seems like in the past we've contributed great things from Texas to culture, like Farm Aid. But Tom, you mentioned the Daily Show and Colbert Report, and we got on the Daily Show and Colbert Report for having such a ridiculous State Board of Education. And it seems now Texas culture is just famous for being stupid.
Well,
and,
I think we've got Arizona now, so we...
They've taken the heat off, but I think when the board meets again on May 19th that it's going to flame up again. And so what would you suggest we could do to counteract this tragedy in our culture, aside from having a happy ending and getting rid of those people in November?
Well, I wish I knew. I mean, it really is a huge embarrassment, and I was thinking about the whole Arizona issue right now, but for somebody in Texas to boycott Arizona because of their peckerwood politics is just sort of a pot calling the kettle black. I remember Molly Ivins used to be sort of proud of that only Louisiana was more Byzantine than we were. But, I don't know. Does anybody have an answer to that?
Yeah, maybe when the SBOE meets again, we can reclaim the crown of the Peckerwood crown. I noticed that even Rick Perry is nervous about having a similar law in Texas to the, you know, Crystal
Yeah.
Knock law they have in Arizona now.